Well, North Korea is at it again, it seems. Despite almost universal criticism and a cancelling of a US food aid program, it last week insisted it would press ahead with the launch of a satellite mounted on a long-range rocket later this month. It claims the launch has no military significance and will take place between the 12th and the 16th of April to mark the 100th anniversary of the birth of its late former president, Kim Il-sung, the grandfather of the current leader, Kim Jong-un. Soon afterwards, President Obama and other leaders at a nuclear security summit meeting in Seoul condemned the planned launch as a provocation and a violation of the United Nations Security Council resolution, as well as a waste of millions of dollars that could be used to buy much needed food for North Koreans. The resolution he referred to was passed by the UN Security Council after a similar launch in 2009. South Korea said the launch would be a grave provocation, while Japan urged the North to exercise restraint and threatened to shoot down the rocket if it threatened its territory. As well as cancelling the food aid program, Obama and other world leaders also said additional sanctions against North Korea would be implemented if the launch went ahead. This is one of the not so common instances where it seems both China and the US seem to be in broad agreement. But is that also the case amongst Chinese net users? Our researcher Esther Dung has been following what's being said about this. Now first, Esther, the Chinese government has effectively told North Korea to back off a bit on this one. So how are Chinese net users reacting to North Korea's decision to go ahead with this launching of the satellite?
Well, it certainly has created headlines in the Chinese media, and there's quite a range of opinions from net users. Some seem quite unhappy and blame North Korea for having no sense of responsibility. One typical example is this poster named 行走的绵羊. To be honest, North Korea has brought lots of trouble to China over the past years, and its past behavior has proven that it's a country without any sense of responsibility. Its decision to launch it just shows its failure to fulfill its promise. But on the other side, there are those who simply can't see why it's such a big deal, like this anonymous poster on Huanqiu.com. I honestly can't understand. Every country has a right to launch a satellite. Why can't North Korea launch one? And this poster on the same side feels it's simply self-defense. What both Iran and North Korea have been doing over the past decades is struggling to survive. They never invade other countries or wage wars. They just have to survive in the face of pressure and suppression from the US and other Western countries. They can't just resign themselves to death, can they? And a lot more speculate on just what's behind North Korea's decision. For example, Li Daguang has this on QQ.com. North Korea announced this plan shortly after signing an agreement with the US to give up its nuclear program in return for grain. Plenty of people feel it proves the North Korean tactic of putting the US under pressure by creating a crisis and thereby gaining the initiative in negotiations. However, I believe the main purpose this time is to develop its space industry, which is an indispensable part of the economic development. But the international community is still suspicious and worries that it's paving way for intercontinental ballistic missiles. And Song Li Wei comments on China.com.cn. This will bring lots of uncertainty to the Korea Peninsula and give rise to the potential for conflict. While finally, 都市未眠人 believes that despite the diplomatic statements, this is what other countries really think about the proposed launch. China and Russia actually feel happy because it's problematic for the US. While the US is certainly unhappy, but can do little except having more military exercises. South Korea has plenty of complaints over these expensive military exercises, while Japan is frightened and thinks it better keep away from this insane country. And North Korea doesn't think it loses anything, because even without the food aid, it still has China, a rich big brother, to help it out.
Okay, that last poster mentioned that US decision to stop food aid to North Korea. The US has now confirmed this, saying it doubted whether the food would actually get to the intended recipients, children and pregnant women. Anything being said about this aspect of it?
Well, yes, that's something that has certainly got Chinese net users talking. And I see the majority of them think it's unethical for the US to link food aid to North Korea's satellite program, like this poster from Hebei. Food aid shouldn't be conditional. After all, if the US really canceled the food aid, it would be the ordinary people in North Korea who starve in the end. And also this poster named SOPA believed such conditional aid is not help in the real sense of the word. This is precisely what aid from these so-called democratic countries is. It's never without ties, but always comes with strings attached. While some think that the U.S. canceling of food aid isn't a big deal to North Korea. For example, Zhang Liangui had this to say during an interview with Hong Kong-based Phoenix Television. The U.S. food aid to North Korea is actually humanitarian aid, which means that it's unrelated to the country's performance on the world stage. And actually, the U.S. has stated this several times. And to be honest, the food aid isn't that attractive to North Korea, since what they asked for was actually grain, not food. And the U.S. aid is actually 240,000 ton food, which will be distributed over 12 months. And then we have this poster on BONTV.com, who thinks it's not all bad news for the U.S. North Korea's announcement of launching a satellite actually gives the U.S. a good excuse to set up its long-planned anti-missile system in East Asia.
Okay, finally, Esther, China has given what appears to be a veiled warning to North Korea, calling on it to stay calm, exercise restraint and avoid escalation. Now, compared to its usual both sides should blah, blah, blah statements, this is really a bit of a rap on the knuckles for North Korea. So what kind of role do posters expect China to play in all this?
Well, quite interestingly, despite that statement from the Chinese government, I've come across plenty of posters who believe China will stand beside North Korea, whether it likes it or not, due to China's own strategic considerations. First, listen to this short comment on Sohu.com. China will never leave North Korea alone. Otherwise, the U.S. will be at our gates. And finally, this anonymous poster on BONTV.com has this approach. Every time when North Korea does something unexpected, China is caught in an embarrassing dilemma, since China had to find some balance between North Korea and the US, South Korea, and Japan. The situation on the Korean peninsula is so complicated that it's beyond China's ability to control it. On the one hand, China has to maintain a good relationship with North Korea, while on the other hand, China has to let the US know that it isn't being completely accommodating to North Korea. Actually, without the influence of China, today's North Korea would be even more unruly.
Well, perhaps it might be more accurate to say that without China's influence, today's North Korea probably wouldn't even exist. Thanks for that, Esther.